Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Listen and Learn English. I'm Emma, and we're very happy that you are here learning English with us today.
Hello, friends. I'm Tom. It's always great to spend time together practicing English conversations.
Today, we are going to talk about a topic that many English learners find a little confusing at first.
Yes, today's lesson is about I did versus I have done.
These two forms are very common in English. Native speakers use them all the time in daily conversations.
But sometimes learners ask questions like, when should I say I did and when should I say I have done?
Don't worry. In today's lesson, Tom and I will explain the difference step by step in a simple and friendly way.
And we will also share some funny examples and little stories from our daily lives to make the lesson more interesting.
Exactly. Learning grammar through conversations and stories makes it easier to remember.
Emma, I remember when I was learning another language, I made many mistakes with past tenses.
Really? What kind of mistakes?
One time, I tried to say something like, I finished my homework, but I used the wrong tense, and the sentence sounded very strange.
That happens to everyone when learning a new language.
Yes, mistakes are part of learning. The important thing is to keep practicing.
Dear friends, before we begin, please take a moment to like this video. Every like helps our channel grow and reach more English learners around the world.
And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to Listen and Learn English so you can continue learning English with Emma and Tom.
We also love reading your comments, so tell us, do you sometimes feel confused about English grammar?
Or maybe you already know the difference between I did and I have done.
All right, friends, now let's begin our lesson and discover the difference between these two very useful English expressions. All right, friends, now that we have introduced today's topic, let's begin with the first form, I did. This form belongs to what we call the simple past tense, which is one of the most common tenses used in everyday English conversations when we talk about actions that happened in the past and are completely finished.
Exactly. When we use I did or other simple past forms, we usually talk about something that happened at a specific time in the past, and that action is already completed. The important thing here is that the action is finished, and we often know when it happened.
For example, imagine that yesterday evening you finished all your homework after a long day at school or work. You can say, I finished my homework yesterday evening after dinner.
Yes, and notice the word yesterday. Words like yesterday, last night, last week, 2 days ago, or last year are very common with the simple past tense because they clearly show when the action happened.
Let's look at another example. If you visited a friend last weekend and spent time talking, drinking coffee, and laughing together, you could say, I visited my friend last weekend and we talked for hours.
That reminds me of something funny that happened to me last week. I decided to cook dinner for my family because I wanted to surprise them with my cooking skills.
Oh, really? That sounds nice. What did you cook?
Well, I tried to cook a new pasta recipe that I found on the internet, and I was very confident at the beginning. But after I finished cooking, I realized I forgot to add one very important ingredient.
Oh no, what ingredient did you forget?
I forgot the salt. So when my family tasted the pasta, everyone looked at each other quietly. And then my sister said, Tom, this is very healthy food.
That's a polite way to say it doesn't taste very good.
Exactly. So I said, I cooked dinner tonight, but I didn't cook it very well.
That's a perfect example of the simple past tense. You are talking about something that happened earlier and is already finished.
Another example could be something simple like, I watched a movie last night after work.
Or, I studied English for 2 hours yesterday evening.
The key idea is simple. When we talk about completed actions in the past with a clear time, we usually use the simple past tense, such as I did, I watched, I visited, or I studied.
All right, friends, now let's move to the second form in today's lesson, I have done. This form is part of what we call the present perfect tense. It may sound a little complicated at first, but once you understand the idea behind it, it becomes much easier to use in everyday English conversations.
Yes, the present perfect tense is very common in English, especially when people talk about their life experiences, recent actions, or things that happened in the past but still have a connection to the present moment.
That's a very important point. When we say, I have done something, we usually do not focus on the exact time the action happened. Instead, we focus on the experience itself or the result that we see now.
For example, imagine someone asks you if you have ever visited another country. You might answer, yes, I have visited Italy.
In this sentence, you're not saying when you visited Italy. The important idea is simply that this experience happened sometime in your life.
Exactly. The exact time is not important. Maybe it happened last year, maybe 5 years ago. The focus is the experience, not the time.
Let's look at another example. Suppose your friend asks you if you finished your homework. You can say, I have finished my homework.
In this case, the important thing is the result right now. The homework is finished, and now you're free to relax.
That reminds me of something funny that happened to me recently. Last week, I tried cooking a completely new recipe for the first time.
Oh, really? What did you cook?
I tried making homemade pizza. Before that day, I had never made pizza myself, so I told my friend, I have tried making homemade pizza for the first time.
That's a perfect example of the present perfect. You're talking about a new experience that happened in your life.
Yes, and when my friend asked more questions, she said, how was the pizza?
And what did you say?
I said, well, I have learned that making pizza is harder than ordering pizza.
That is very true.
Let's look at a few more examples that people often use in daily conversations. I have seen that movie before. I have read that book many times. I have learned a lot of new English words recently.
Notice that in all these sentences, we don't mention a specific time like yesterday or last week.
Exactly. That is one of the biggest differences between I did and I have done. All right, friends. Now that we have talked about I did and I have done separately, this is the perfect moment to compare them directly so you can clearly see how they are different and when you should use each one in real conversations.
Yes, sometimes learners understand each tense individually, but they still feel confused when they need to choose between them while speaking English.
The main difference is very simple if we remember one important idea. We use I did when we talk about something that happened in the past and we know exactly when it happened.
And we use I have done when the exact time is not important or when the action still has some connection to the present moment.
Let's look at two sentences that sound similar but have different meanings. Sentence 1. I did my homework yesterday. Sentence 2. I have done my homework.
In the first sentence, we clearly say yesterday. That means the action happened at a specific time in the past and it is finished.
In the first sentence, we clearly say yesterday. That means the action happened at a specific time in the past and it is finished.
Here's another example that often happens in conversation.
Have you eaten lunch?
Yes, I have eaten.
But if I ask a different question, the tense changes. Tom, what did you eat for lunch?
Then I answer with the past tense. I ate a sandwich and a salad.
Notice how the question changes the tense. When we ask about the experience, we use present perfect.
But when we ask about the specific time or details, we use the past tense.
This reminds me of a small travel story from a few years ago. A friend once asked me, have you ever visited Paris?
That's a present perfect question because it asks about your life experience.
Exactly. And I answered, yes, I have visited Paris.
But then I became curious and asked another question. Emma, when did you visit Paris?
And then I said, I visited Paris 3 years ago during a summer vacation.
That's a perfect example. First, we used present perfect for the experience, and then we used past tense for the specific time.
When learners understand this pattern, it becomes much easier to choose the correct tense while speaking. All right, friends. Now that we understand the difference between I did and I have done, let's look at how these two forms appear naturally in real conversations. Listening to real examples can help you understand how native speakers actually use these tenses when they talk about their experiences or past actions.
That's a great idea. Many times, people learn grammar rules in books, but when they listen to real conversations, the grammar suddenly becomes clearer.
Let's imagine a simple situation. Two friends are talking during lunch break. Have you finished your work today?
Yes, I have finished my work. Notice that the question is about the result now, not about the time. That's why we use the present perfect.
But the conversation might continue like this. Tom, when did you finish your work?
I finished it about an hour ago. Now we use the past tense because we mentioned a specific time.
Let me share a small story that shows this difference very clearly. A few days ago, I was talking with a friend about traveling.
I love travel stories. What happened?
My friend asked me, "Have you ever visited Japan?"
That question uses the present perfect because it asks about your life experience.
Exactly. So I answered, "Yes, I have visited Japan."
And then your friend probably wanted more details.
Of course. She asked me, "When did you visit Japan?"
And then you use the past tense.
Yes, I said, "I visited Japan 5 years ago during the spring."
That's a perfect example of how these two tenses work together in conversation.
Here is another example that many students hear in daily life.
Have you seen the new movie that everyone is talking about?
Yes, I have seen it.
And if someone asks about the time, the tense changes again.
When did you see it?
I saw it last weekend with my cousin.
Tom, this reminds me of a funny story about something you tried recently.
Oh no, I think I know which story you're talking about.
Yes, tell everyone what happened.
Well, a few weeks ago, I decided to learn how to bake a cake. I told my friends proudly, I have tried baking a cake.
That sounds impressive.
But then they asked me, when did you bake the cake?
And what did you say?
I said I baked the cake last Saturday, and unfortunately, it didn't taste very good.
Well, at least you tried.
Yes, and now I can say I have learned that baking is harder than it looks.
That's a great lesson. All right, friends, now that we have seen many examples of I did and I have done, let's talk about some of the common mistakes that English learners often make when using these two forms. Understanding these mistakes can help you avoid them and speak more naturally.
Yes, this is very important. Many learners understand the grammar rule, but when they start speaking quickly in conversation, they sometimes mix the two tenses together.
One of the most common mistakes happens when someone uses present perfect with the specific past time.
For example, some learners say something like, I have finished my homework yesterday.
But that sentence is not correct because the word yesterday tells us a specific time in the past.
When we mention a clear time like yesterday, last night, last week, or 2 days ago, we must use the simple past tense.
So the correct sentence would be, I finished my homework yesterday.
Exactly. The moment we add a time expression, the tense changes.
Here is another example that learners sometimes say, I have seen that movie last night.
Again, this sentence is not correct because last night is a specific time in the past.
The correct sentence is, I saw that movie last night.
Emma, I remember when I was first learning another language, I made a similar mistake.
Oh, really? What happened?
I tried to tell someone about a movie I watched, and I said something like, I have watched that movie yesterday. The person looked a little confused.
That happens to many language learners.
Yes, and my teacher later explained that when we mention a finished time, we should use the past tense.
Another mistake happens when learners avoid the present perfect when it is needed.
For example, imagine someone asks you, have you ever tried sushi?
Some learners answer, yes, I tried sushi.
That sentence is understandable, but the more natural answer is, yes, I have tried sushi.
Because the question is about life experience, not about a specific time.
Emma, have you ever made a grammar mistake while speaking another language?
Oh, yes, many times. One time, I tried to explain something in another language, but I used the wrong tense and my sentence sounded very strange.
Did people understand you?
Eventually, they did, but we all laughed about it. It reminded me that making mistakes is a normal part of learning.
That's a very important message for our listeners.
Yes, the goal is not to speak perfect English immediately, but to keep practicing and improving step by step.
All right, friends, now let's practice using I did and I have done through small stories in real life situations. Stories are a great way to understand grammar because they show how language works naturally in conversations.
Yes, when we hear grammar inside a story, it becomes easier for our brain to remember the pattern.
Let's start with a simple example. Yesterday, I decided to try something new in the kitchen.
That already sounds interesting. What happened?
Yesterday evening, I tried to cook a new recipe that I found online. So I can say, I cooked a new recipe yesterday.
That sentence uses the simple past tense because you mentioned the specific time yesterday.
Exactly. But if I want to talk about my general experience with cooking, I can say, I have tried many different recipes.
Now the focus is on your experience in life, not on a specific day.
That's right. And sometimes we start a conversation with the present perfect and then continue with the past tense.
Let me give you an example from my life. A friend once asked me, "Have you ever climbed a mountain?"
That's a present perfect question because it asks about your life experience.
Yes, and I answered, "Yes, I have climbed a mountain."
But I was curious, so I asked, when did you climb the mountain?
Then I used the simple past. I climbed a mountain 3 years ago during a trip with my friends.
That is a perfect example of how these two tenses often work together in conversations.
Emma, I also remember something funny from last year. I decided to start exercising regularly.
That's a great goal. What happened?
Well, I told my friends proudly, I have started a new exercise routine.
That sounds very impressive.
But when they asked me, when did you start exercising?
Let me guess. The answer was not very recent.
Exactly. I said, I started exercising last Monday, but I stopped on Tuesday.
At least you tried.
Yes, and now I can say I have learned that staying motivated is the hardest part of exercise.
Stories like this show how both tenses appear naturally in everyday conversations. All right, friends, we have reached the final stage of today's lesson. Let's take a moment to review everything we have learned about I did and I have done.
Yes, this is a very useful grammar topic because these two forms appear in English conversations almost every day. Once you understand the difference, it becomes much easier to speak naturally.
Let's start with I did. We use this form when we talk about an action that happened in the past and is completely finished, especially when we know exactly when it happens.
For example, we say, I finished my homework yesterday. Or, I watched a movie last night.
Notice that both sentences include a specific time expression such as yesterday or last night.
Now let's look at I have done. This form is called the present perfect tense.
We use it when the exact time is not important or when we talk about experiences in our life.
For example, I have visited London. I have learned many English words.
In these sentences, the focus is not on when the action happened, but on the experience or result.
Sometimes these two tenses appear in the same conversation.
For example,
Have you ever visited Italy?
yes, I have visited Italy.
When did you visit Italy?
I visited Italy 3 years ago.
That is a very natural way English speakers use these two forms together.
The most important thing to remember is the simple idea. If you mention a specific time in the past, use I did.
If you talk about life experience or a result connected to the present, use I have done.
And remember, learning grammar takes time. So don't worry if you make mistakes while practicing.
Even native speakers sometimes make small mistakes when speaking quickly.
The best way to improve is to listen to conversations, practice speaking, and use English in real situations.
Before we finish today's lesson, please like the video if you enjoyed learning with us.
And don't forget to subscribe to Listen and Learn English so you can continue improving your English every week.
We also love reading your comments. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been confused about these two tenses before?
Thank you for learning English with us today.
Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep speaking English.
See you in the next lesson.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.